Welcome to Lifeline! Woo! Okay, so today we're going to talk about what's it to you, right? What's it to you? I got a question for you. So when you go to the doctor's office, how do they measure your height? Anybody been to the doctor's office recently? How do they measure your height? I'm glad you said that. Do they have a stick? Yeah, I actually have something for you. So they have a stick, but they don't have a stick, right? Because if they had a stick, then at one doctor's office you might be 1.5 sticks high, and at the next doctor's office you might be like 14 sticks high, right? Depending on how long the stick was, right? They don't have a stick; they've got a stick, right? And that stick has measurements on it. And some are in feet and inches, and some of our friends from across the pond are in this funky... I know it is. They measure in like inchimeters or something like that. I don't remember what it is. But there's a standard, right? So we can compare. So you know that when you go measure and you're 5'10" at one doctor's office, and you go to the next doctor's office and you're 4'10", you can go, I think your stick's off, right? There's a standard, and that helps us compare heights and compare lengths, and be crazy if you cross state lines and they use a different, it's 2,200 miles to Chicago, and then when you cross into Illinois, it's 16 furlongs or whatever. It'd be really crazy, because then we wouldn't be able to compare. And so, it's kind of dumb to measure things on not using something that's standard. But the problem is, oftentimes we measure ourselves with something just as unreliable. Right? When we think about our self-worth and maybe how good we're doing, our success, our happiness, sometimes we measure ourselves. We measure our happiness. We measure our success. And a lot of times we're not using a standard. We're kind of using that stick. And you might say, well, I don't really do that. Well, I would propose that oftentimes we measure ourselves so subtly that we don't even realize that we're measuring ourselves. Right? And the problem with this is when we measure ourselves, then that measurement can cause problems. For instance, if we took height for an example and we said, I really want to be tall and it makes me feel uncomfortable if I'm short. And we were using an unreliable measurement, and it said maybe you grew up your whole life and you're 6 foot tall and you really thought you were 5 foot tall. And you thought, well, 6 foot's really good. I mean, that's close to, I could probably be the water boy on an NBA team at 6 foot. That's tall. But I'm only 5 foot, so I can't. And see, you're comparing yourself to a measurement that's wrong. And that causes issues. Sometimes that causes anxiety. Sometimes it causes insecurity. Sometimes it even causes depression. And there's this concept in psychology, and it's called social comparison theory. Right? And this is what it is. It basically says social comparison theory states that we determine our own social and personal worth based on how we stack up against others. In other words, instead of going to the doctor and measuring her height, he just say, everyone from the waiting room, come in here, line up tallest to shortest. Okay, you're the tallest, you're the shortest. Write those down. Right? We're not comparing to a standard. We compare to those around us. And that's a problem. Because guess what? There's only one Steve, thank God. Right? And there's only one you. And comparing Steve's to Randy's and Randy's to Steve's is like apples and oranges. I'm the apple, by the way, just so you know. But it's not fair. It's not a fair comparison. Right? And the problem today is if you take social comparison theory, which has existed for years, and you add social media, now we can compare ourselves to people we've never even met. One of my favorite pastors is named Stephen Furtick. He does Elevation Church on the East Coast, and I love this quote from him. He said, the reason we struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. And social media lets us do that because we know where our scars are at. We know where our flaws are at. And guess what? Most people don't put those on social media. Some people do. Most people don't put those on social media. So we get to see all the great things that everyone else does. And we compare the real us to their highlight reel. And the thing about social comparison theory is it's not new. It wasn't at the advent of Twitter and Facebook and MySpace and all that old school stuff too, where that took place. That's been taking place forever. In fact, the disciples suffered from it pretty bad. And I'm glad I found this video that I played because it's very similar. In Luke 9:46, disciples began arguing about which of them was the greatest, right? Why would that even matter if they're not comparing each other? Right? They're looking at the other disciples going exactly what they did. Look at the churches that I built. Look at the people that I've saved. Look at the miracles I performed. Hey, Jesus, which one of us is better? Social comparison theory. They continued on. If you continue on Luke 22, then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them, right? So maybe, Jesus kind of shot them down. Who's the greatest? He's like, don't worry about it. Actually, what he did is he pulled up a little child and said, hey, you want to compare yourselves? Here's the winner. The child wins. They're better than all of you. And so a few days later, here they are, and they're like, well, maybe we're not the best now, but one day, one of us is going to be the greatest, and we want to know who that's going to be. Right? And so the disciples suffered from that. And one of the ones I really want to share from you this morning comes from John. It's in John 21. If you got your Bibles, you're welcome to turn to that. But it's a story of Peter, right? And I love Peter, maybe because I identify with him a little bit. But to me, Peter's personality was this one of extremes, right? I mean, he was the guy that said, about to wash your feet. I'm going to wash your feet. You're not going to wash my feet, Lord. And Jesus says, well, if I don't wash your feet, then you can't be clean. Well, then don't stop at my feet. Wash your whole body. Wash my whole body. And Jesus is like, you don't get it. It's not about physical washing. It's about the posture of heart, right? And who can forget, you're going to deny me 3 times before the cock crows. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And then it happens. And this verse I'm about to share with you is right after what I call Peter's renewal. It's when Jesus is sitting there and they're cooking fish on the side. It's after Jesus' resurrection and he's on earth and he's on the beach and he's cooking them breakfast. They were out fishing. And he pulls Peter aside and he says, Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, of course I love you, Lord. And he says, then feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? He said, of course, Lord, feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, feed my sheep. And see, he did that 3 times because the 3 times Peter denied him, he got to wash those away. And Peter got to be built back up. And right after that is this verse. Jesus turns to Peter and says, I tell you the truth, when you were young, you were able to do what you liked. You dressed yourself, you went wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and others will dress you and take you where you don't want to go. Jesus said this to let him know by what kind of death he would glorify God. So Jesus is basically saying, I'm going to leave here, pretty quick, and I'm going to go back to heaven, and your life's going to suck. There's people that are going to put you in chains, they're going to take you away, and they're going to crucify you. It turned out to be true. Right? But what's interesting here is John's response, or Peter's response here in John. Peter turned around and saw behind him the disciple Jesus loved. Just as a quick aside, who's the disciple that Jesus loved? Right. Look at the author of the book. Right? Think we got some social comparison theory going on there? Right? Okay. So Peter turned around and saw behind him John, the disciple Jesus loved, the one who had leaned over to Jesus during the supper and asked, Lord, who will betray you? And Peter asked, what about him? Right? So Jesus is like, okay, here's the deal, Peter. You're going to die a really bad death. As soon as I go back up to heaven, you're going to start preaching the gospel. People aren't going to like it. They're going to put you in chains. They're going to dress you. They're going to take you places that you don't want to go, and you're going to die a really bad death. And Peter's response to that was, what about John? He going to die bad too? Right? As if he could take some comfort in the fact that if John died too really bad and really painful, maybe even more painful, then I'm ahead. I still die. It's still painful, but at least it's not as bad as John. And it would be terrible if John got to just die of natural causes, right? What about... And Jesus replied, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what's that to you? There's the title of our sermon. What's that to you? As for you, follow me. So the rumor spread among the community of believers that this disciple wouldn't die, but that isn't what Jesus said at all. He only said, if I want him to remain alive, what is that to you? So Peter's response is much like our own when we get into situations, right? When something bad happens to us, we kind of look around and go, what about him, Lord? Anybody ever tripped and fallen and looked around and see if anyone saw you do it? Right? Why does that matter? Still fell, right? It's a little bit of social comparison. What about him, Lord? That's the response of being told that. And what was interesting is if you read that text, it said Peter was told how he was going to get to glorify God. You know, he was told of his brutal death, but John phrased it in the fact that Peter was told how he gets to glorify God. And Peter's response was, okay, that's cool, but what about him? And sometimes we don't say, what about him? Sometimes we say, why me? It's still social comparison because we're saying, why me? Because this person got this, and this person got this, and this person got this. Why do I have to get this other thing? Sometimes it's, why not me? How come they get all the good stuff? How come they get treated like that? How come they get to be in relationship? How come they get a promotion? How come they, you know? We think we can somehow feel better about our situation if we can just measure ourselves to others. Right? It's like life's grading on a curve. I remember in college, in the early years, they were just trying to get people to quit, I think. I don't know any other reason for it, but, you know, and a lot of them did. And, you know, you'd go take a test, and you'd get a D, maybe a 60%. Oh, I got a D. And then they hand out all the papers and your social comparison big time there. You're like, what'd you get? Dude, what'd you get? And then the teacher comes up and goes, okay, well, let me tell you what the curve's going to be. 60%'s an A. You know, and you're like, an A? I just got an A? But you're in major comparison mode because what they did is, that's what the curve is. They compared to how everyone else did and raised the bar. You know, raised the grades. Life doesn't grade on a curve. It doesn't matter what the other people got on their test. Jesus says it like this. What is that to you? Part of that, I think, is coming from, do we know where our place is at with Jesus Christ? Because I think what Jesus was trying to say there is, hey, Peter, this is going to happen to you. And it shouldn't matter what I choose to do with anyone else. If you can remember, there was a story that Jesus told, one of the parables, about the people. And we talked about it just a few weeks ago. About the people who went out to the field, and he paid the people that went out at 5 o'clock and worked an hour the same as the people that worked all day. And what did the landowner say? What is it to you if I choose to be generous with my money? A little foreshadowing, you think? And see, In the world today, we've got this concept of fair. And I think it holds us back a lot. And I heard a basketball coach once say, I always treated my players fair, but I never treated them equal. And sometimes we think fair is equal. And I will tell you, the easiest, well, I can't even say the easiest way. I'm going to say the easiest way to be fair is to be equal, but that's not even true, because fair is not equal and equal is not fair. Right? Equals everyone gets a trophy. Fair is you lost. And sometimes you lose. Sometimes somebody else wins. Sometimes life's disappointing. Sometimes somebody else gets something and you think they shouldn't have got it. I think what Jesus is really telling Peter is own your own walk. Right? I'm telling this about you. Own your own walk. Own your own place. Right? Own your own life. So he's telling Peter, why would it matter to you what happens to John? And what I love, his answer to that, right? Because this is the how. When we look at our own life and we say, and we're falling prey to this social comparison theory, whether we realize it or not, and we feel things aren't fair, how do we get past that? I want to read you the end of that verse 19 in John 21. It said, Jesus said to him to let him know what kind of death he would glorify God. Then Jesus told him, follow me. And I will tell you, the vision that I get in my head is he's looking at Peter and he's like, Peter, look here. But John, no, look here. Look into my eyes and follow me. But no, don't look over there. Don't look over here. Don't look up. Don't look down. You look at me. Follow me. Follow me. I want to do a little exercise here. I want everyone to close your eyes for a second. And I want you to visualize this, okay? I want you to visualize you're sitting on the beach. Okay, I lost some of you right there. Not that beach. You're sitting on a beach with Jesus and He's cooking breakfast. All right? And you're in the place of Peter and He's just had that conversation with you. And you're trying to be distracted by other people. And Jesus says, follow me. And I want you to see Jesus' face. Whatever you think Jesus looks like. I want you to imagine Jesus' face saying, follow me. And just listen to my voice. Follow me. The enemy will try to destroy you. But if he can't, he will try to distract you. Follow me. Others will tell you that you're not good enough. It doesn't matter. Follow me. Discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. Follow me. There's going to be times in your life when you're going to be disappointed. Follow me. There's going to be times in your life when you think, I did you wrong. I love you. Follow me. There's going to be times in your life where you're going to doubt that I exist. I do. Follow me. There's going to be times when you hit rock bottom and there's nowhere else to turn. And you'll feel so far away from me. And when you look up, I'll be right in front of your face saying, follow me. We're going to go to the Lord in prayer with your eyes closed. Heavenly Father, we come here today and we're here to follow you. Lord, there are so many distractions in this world and we try to compare ourselves to other people. We try to compare ourselves to other brothers and sisters. We try to compare ourselves to celebrities that we see on TV. We try to compare ourselves to the people we work with, or the people we go to school with, or the people in our family. Other people even try to make that comparison. And what we need from you today, Lord, is the strength to follow you. What we need is the strength to put the blinders on and look you straight in the eye, and don't look down, and don't look up, and don't look right, and don't look left, and trust in you and just follow you. And when we say, Lord, but what about? And know that you're saying, what's it to you? What's it to you what I did with them? What's it to you if I wanted to bless them? What's it to you if they needed to learn something? What's it to you if I decided to discipline them? What's it to you if they turned their back? What's it to you? Follow me. We ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.